Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu bkhair agale ni hao chunashumme washmale. Ohai Gonzaimas, guten Morgen, Hola, Boyor, Privyet, Kaifa hal, Halishuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasal, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabi, Balli Kreaya, Hosh Galde, Nanayo Hasayo, Adab, and thank you very much everybody for tuning into BTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning. The day happens to be Friday, so happy Friday to each and every one of you. But first things first, you know, I already have my very well-learned colleague besides me, Miss Haja Sati. Hello, Haja. How are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me. Juma Mubarak to you and everyone out there. So I have a question for you.
Sure, go ahead. Shoot.
Few days ago, you asked me about my views on the feminism. So I was listening to a podcast, very interesting one, and you know that the Andrew Tate has been in the news for quite some time about his very controversial views.
His cars has been confiscated as well. Bugattis and Lamborghinis. Yes.
Obviously, you know the car news. So there's a business angle to that. Okay. So and obviously he's been controversial with the Greta Thunberg. But having said so, Andrew Tate has a lot of fan following, right? And we have seen that the following that he has, a lot of men out there who are actually believing in his views, and that hinges or brings a conversation regarding the toxic masculinity, right? Or the masculinity in itself. So what are your views regarding that? How do you see the feminism? How do you see the masculinity? Because one of my friend, a male friend of mine mentioned that because there's a lot of feminist movement out there, we men feel that we are being, somehow we don't feel protected enough. So there's a lot of masculine movements out there to counter those feminist movements. So what is your view about it?
All right, you know, so I'm going to take my time to think about it as well. And while I'm saying it, I think I'm simultaneously thinking about it. I think men, and I've said it before as well, you know, Haja, you know, we need to put the facts straightly out there as well. You know, so imagine that women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. You know, that's one thing which I'm for sure. You know, animals or pets, you know, you can count all of them out there.
In our society?
Yeah, in our society, I think in every society. But imagine that man on this planet Earth is not loved unconditionally. And this is one thing which I'm saying for sure. So imagine that if today, God forbid, I fail to provide for my family, if today, God forbid, I fail to, you know, pay my bills, if today, God forbid, I fail to pay for my, you know, medicines or for my family's medicines or their health care, you know, that unconditional love will not be there anymore. You know, so number one, men do not need any sort of, you know, activity out there to counter feminism. You know, we're not so weak inside that we really need to come out and say, hey, you know what not. Even though that, you know, there are a lot of men, having said that, you know, majority of the population in our country lives under the poverty line, still they would never come out and say that, you know, dekho ji sade naal badi galti ho rahi, assi bade majboor haan. But yes, the very fact, I think people, what they need to realize is that when we have our down days, you know, we only have Allah by our side. You know, as Muslims, that's what we think. But unfortunately, that feeling is not very amazing. When you're not being loved unconditionally, when you have to provide for the family, unfortunately, you fail, you know, you fall down. I think that's the problem. And men would never come out and cry, oh, ji, dekho ji, meri buddhi mere naanu puch rahi. That's not the case. I think with the way we have been nurtured, the way we have been groomed, we do not need any counter movement. You know, feminism, everybody, whatever they want to speak about, they're fine. You know, men, we do not multitask. You know, what we do is that we stay focused, we work on one thing. If it works out, that's fine. If it doesn't work out, we do not wean about it.
Okay, so thank you so much for introducing the Islamic framework into our entire conversation, and that is where I want to bring our conversation around this. So obviously feminism is an enlightenment project. It has been derived from the West, and we have seen that all of these counter movements to the feminism, they also derive from the West. So it's very easy to fall prey to the far leftist, far rightist ideas, no, the right-wing ideas, because so a lot of radical feminists, when they say that in the name of empowerment, in the name of emancipation, when they say that this is how we want to dress up, or for that matter, you know, they are, I mean, dressing up like we do not aspire to be.
True.
So, and women in the, in the southern part of the Buddhist world, right? So having said so, it is very easy to fall into prey to the people like Andrew Tate, because he says that, okay, men are oppressed a lot and they are asked to go soft because of this feminist issue. But I think we should revert back to our prophetic traditions, in which obviously the lot of traits of toxic masculinity which have been condemned. So for example, a lot of people say that men don't cry. If you look at the Islamic...
I do.
Islamic framework, yes, obviously I'm coming to that. We've seen that the tears, they are the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have seen that Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to cry when he used to go to the grave of his sons. He used
For
to
his
cry.
entire ummah.
True, for his entire ummah. And it is said about the tears that they extinguish the fire of Allah's wrath. Hazrat Umar used to cry, and he was a very, he was a very strict administrator, but when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to cry. And obviously crying doesn't mean that you cry at every instance. That degrades the value of your tears in that sense, but you cry. So I think we need to revert back to our prophetic traditions, because there is already a framework out there how to deal with the things, how not to deal with the things. And when it comes to, for example, women were not allowed to vote in the Western world for quite some time.
True.
So in Switzerland, they were granted their rights in 1972, which is quite a late time, right? But if you look in the Islam, we will see that there are a lot of empowered women. When Pakistan came into being, women already had a right to vote,
True.
right? So having said this, I do feel that the Islamic framework is out there, and there's a need to revert back to our traditions, prophetic traditions, because there's a guidance out there how to deal with it.
Exactly, and for people who cry, ladies and gentlemen, they have a softer heart. You know, that's why you cry too as well. You ask from Allah Almighty, you beg to Allah Almighty, Allah me please, and Allah loves you. You know, when He sees you cry, ladies and gentlemen, when Allah sees you cry, you know, Allah is going to give you for what you're asking for as well. And Allah loves you when you're crying, when you're begging to Allah Almighty. So I think make sure, and just very quickly to wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the Islamic framework and we're going back to the values, it's just like, you know, how on a single tree, we will see that there will be branches in different direction. There will be branches in, you know, different in length, different in size. You know, some going downwards, some going upwards. But remember, the root is going to be the same. I think that's what gathers us as Muslims as well, because the root is the same, and no matter what happens, we will reflect upon our values, and this is our responsibility. Mine and Hanja over here at PTV World, to make sure that we say the right thing. I've experienced these right things as well, and that power of faith, ladies and gentlemen, if you step outside the alley of power of faith, because what happens is when you pray to Allah Almighty, I'm sorry I'm taking your time, but it is very fruitful. When you pray to Allah Almighty, what Allah does is that Allah actually puts your gift in a box, packs it up, and delivers to you. But what happens is that Allah will never tell you when you will get that box shipped to your place. So meanwhile, while it's on way, if you move on to the other street, which might not be the faith street, ladies and gentlemen, it will never be shipped to you. So always make sure that you stand strong in faith, and that to believe in Allah Almighty. And with that, let's move on towards top stories. That was a lot of Diana in the morning. Yes.
Conversation, and it was an enlightened conversation. So moving on to our top stories, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif held a telephonic conversation with the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. Prime Minister underscored Pakistan's commitment to fostering closer relations with China and reiterated Pakistan's unstinting support on China's core interests. They also discussed regional issues of mutual interest. Prime Minister emphasized Pakistan's unswerving focus on timely progress of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects, and assured Chinese Premier that Pakistan would provide a completely secure and conducive business environment for the Chinese investors. Obviously, the new year is here, and we hope and pray that the things get better for us or for the world as a whole, because there is a prediction of recession by the World Bank. But I think we are being in a good hands, because the Prime Minister is striving so that our business interest remains the same, and so same goes for political interest.
Suma, and you know what, I think that, you know, we were born in a time and age where unfortunately we are so prone to another recession. We've seen another recession before, you know, I think early 2000 as well, where we were kids, and you know, we could see how our parents were struggling. Unfortunately, we do not want that for the world out there. So I think everybody who's out there, you know, we truly trust our Premier as well, Mia Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif Saab, and I think that his team is going to pull it off for Pakistan. They've been pulling it off ever since they came in the government. But now moving on, where how, you know, illiteracy, ladies and gentlemen, can damage and tarnish the image of a nation. Hindu extremists have gone on rampage in various cities of India against the new film Pathan by famous Bollywood hero Shah Rukh Khan in the city of Ahmedabad, capital of Gujarat state in India. Hindu extremists tore up the banners and posters of film Pathan, declaring it anti-Hindu. RSS and BJP activists have shown their beastly side by unleashing wild propaganda against the new film starring Shah Rukh Khan and Deepika Padukone. The Hindu extremists have labeled the film against Hinduism. I think it's like having a taste of your own medicine. You've made so many anti-Pakistan films as well. This is the sole reason why we're doing this story, that now when you've taken a bite from your own medicine, it might have hurted you a little bit, or it might have or it will continue to hurt you as well. So please make sure that you choose topics which are not for the success of the film, but for the betterment of the society.
True. So moving on to the match, New Zealand set a target of 319 runs for the Pakistan to win the second test in Karachi after declaring their second innings at 277 for 5.
The required run rate is at 3.54, it's going to go up to 4.5 or 5 somewhat as well. It's going to make it difficult for Pakistan. Well, it has been difficult for Pakistan. It's the lowest we have seen our test cricket at.
Obviously, Shahzad, so we've seen the Pakistani cricket team is not playing very well in the test match series, and you are an expert in the cricket, and I'm pretty sure that you have a very broad analysis for that. So moving on to our topic, which is about the objective setting or the motivation to work. So what is your motivation to work?
I think my motivation to work, I've been very vocal about it. And you know what, when I started working, I want the audiences to listen to it very carefully. So imagine when I started working, I thought that everything which I want in my life is going to come from money. Okay. And eventually, alhamdulillah, when you start to pray to Allah Almighty that Allah Mia, please, I need this opportunity. I want to be there for my family. I want to make sure that my daughters get the best education. And in order to do so, if somebody really stupid is going to come up to my face and be like, hey, you know what, money can't buy anything. I mean, first of all, I think what you need to do is be successful, be more richer than me or anybody else in the room, and then have that philosophy. But unfortunately, what I want to kind of convey over here is that every single time, Haja, when I prayed to Allah Almighty, and Allah Almighty, when He has bestowed His blessings upon me and given me an opportunity, that's where my motivation starts, because I have asked so dearly to Allah Almighty that I so want to do this in my life, and when Allah gives me that opportunity, I'm going to go seize it. That's where I get my motivation from, because unfortunately, what I think is that if I'm not going to commit to it 100%, if I won't be dedicated, if I'm not going to feel motivated, that means that I'm not doing justice to that opportunity which Allah has provided me with, which means that the next time, God forbid, if I fail to do it 100%, if next time I'm going to go beg Allah Almighty, Allah will think, hey, you know what, last time I gave you an opportunity, you didn't really make the best use of it. That's something which has already motivated me in my life.
So thank you so much for enlightening us about your motivation, but how to set those trends and goals for yourself, and that shouldn't just hinge around the professional goals, but also encapsulate the broader well-being of your entire self and your community and the family out there. We have a wonderful guest in our studio who is going to enlighten us about it. So we are very glad that we have been joined by Asif Nazir Saab, who happens to be a motivational speaker. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum. Thank you very much for calling me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. And he's not just a motivational speaker. I think wherever he goes, he brings in that very positive aura. He always makes sure he works on his personality in the first place. So he's an example of motivation in the first place, and only then he can transcend all of those values. So first things first, I think, because you happen to be an author too as well, Asif Saab. So what I'm going to ask you over here is, I mean, just like Haja has asked me, for somebody who happens to be a motivational speaker, the flag bearer, that, hey, you know what, you come to me, I will motivate you. How does that work for you? Because it takes a toll on you too.
I'll start with the point, what you were talking about, the fact that we human beings, actually we have been given this precious life by Almighty Creator, and we are the superior creation, in fact. So we are the success packages. All we are very unique, all we are very different. We have got different talent and potential. We have been blessed with. So all we have to do is to understand and realize this fact. We are so unique. We are very superior. And we are sent on a mission.
True.
And we have to achieve something big, something very important in this world. Yeah. We have been sent with a purpose. So this is what we have to understand. But Shahzad, a very interesting thing, let me share with you. If you go out and ask people, randomly ask them, what do you want to achieve? Everybody would say, I want to achieve. They would say, I want to achieve something big.
Yeah.
But if you ask what big you want to achieve, nobody knows. Right. They are not precise. So if you're not very specific, if you're not precise, and if you do not know where you want to go, how do you like?
I mean, there is no age limit to how you know about your goals, right? How do you know about your goals? I've met a lot of people who are in their late 40s, almost retiring, and then at that point in their life, they understand this is our goal, right? So obviously there's a confusion initially, but how to cater to that confusion so that it becomes into a more sophisticated goal for yourself or for your community or for yourself as a whole? What is your take on that?
Actually, Haja, there are different kind of goals. Actually, you have short-term goals in your life, you have mid-term goals in your life, and you have, the goals of your life. True. So how do you see your life? So all these goals should be aligned with the goals of your life, the objective of your life. Where do you see yourself? What kind of person you want to see yourself by the end of your life? And from where these objectives derive rather, just imagine that a dead body and people around, family members, all those friends, and they are talking about that dead person.
Right.
What kind of husband he was,
True.
what kind of father he was,
True.
what kind of neighbor he was. He was a millionaire, but he was not contributing to the society. So what do you want to listen at that point of time? So from there you derive the objectives of your life. So your short term, your mid term and long term objectives should be aligned with the objectives of your life. So first you set the long term objectives.
Okay.
Because if you want to become a sports person, your daily routine should be like a sportsman. If you want to become a politician, if you want to become a topmost anchor like Shehzad and Hajra, so for that matter you have to set your objectives accordingly. So what happens is, why we fail actually, that everybody when we get up, so we are motivated, like Shehzad is very motivated today.
You are
And
too?
Yes, yeah. I'm
Hajra is as well.
Yes. So we come up with the different thoughts because all those objectives are not aligned with our long-term objectives. So, one day we are dreaming for an actor, the second day we want to become a sportsman, the third day we have, the different
lose our
things.
focus.
Yes, we lose our focus. So, why we lose our focus? Because our objectives are not very precise and specific.
Okay, and Asif bhai, the next couple of minutes, this is something which I would want to dedicate towards. And I believe that this is the biggest challenge where you've hit the nail on the head by saying that we're not precise. We do not know what our goal is. And most of the time, even within our own family, my father has always been saying, Putter, kuch vada karo. Vada ki karna hai ji, nahi pata. Theek hai, unfortunately. But what happens is, if I look at my life and the 10 or 12 years I've spent on television, what I've witnessed for myself is that it's an everyday journey. It's not one goal. It's not one movie. It's not one drama. It's not one show. It's every day new thoughts would arise, and then you would contemplate on them, and you would make sure that you would make a newer show, newer ideas and whatnot. How many times do you think it is important to have one big goal? Or would you say that every single day smaller goals being achieved will take you to one bigger goal which you might not even have any idea about as of now?
Shehzad, interestingly, let me share with you that I'm writing a book on this.
Okay.
Objective setting, and I have related that book with the hill.
Okay.
And the name of the book is Hilltop Model.
All right.
Okay.
So I have related that with the hill is that, ultimately you have to go to the top of the hill.
True.
So this is your objective. Now for that matter, there are dozens of routes.
Or dozens of hills as well.
Dozens of hills as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to get to the top of any hill, means which you have set for yourself to go to the top. So for that matter, there are a number of ways. There would be difficulties. You'll come across with a number of people. You have to set a certain posture to get to the top. You have to make all the preparations. But ultimately you have to go to the one point, and that is the beauty of the objectives, that you have to go to the one point. Right. So if you have the multiple directions, if you have multiple points to go, then you are totally, you lose your focus. In
Okay,
fact.
I agree to it. Now, since you have mentioned about that one top point, one hill point, where you certainly need to reach, and that's what you're aiming for. So imagine that for that, somebody has already done it, right? So there are examples, there are mentors out there. What if you can actually make sure that you can give more height to that hill? Probably take it from where somebody has left it, not try to put yourself in the same shoes as they were, do things differently and have a bigger goal.
Shehzad, winning is not about yourself.
Yeah.
True.
So if you get to the top and if you're enjoying alone, nobody is there to appreciate you. So then your job is actually to pull the people up.
No, but my point over here is that, that for somebody, for example, if as a kid I've seen Mustansar Hussain Tadar Sahab being a wonderful morning show host, and he was at the top, right? So imagine that you do things differently, that your aura or your character or your personality is seen differently than Mustansar Hussain Tadar Sahab, even though he's a legend, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So it's not about me, it's like doing things differently, that you are on a bigger hill now, and then pull people. Obviously, if you want to go faster, you'll have to go alone. If you want to go for a longer period of time, sustainability, I think you really need a team of people to work with you.
Yeah, Shehzad, we need to understand that everybody has got different, set of skills, different talent, different potential. Mustansar Hussain was a different personality. You have got a different personality. So there is no end and limit to this.
True. So it can always be
So
out
it
there.
can always be. You go to the one peak, and there you would realize that there is another connected peak to that.
Yeah.
So there is another connect.
True.
So that's how your journey
And you
goes.
continue.
And you continue. You have to learn every day. But the important thing is what? Important thing is what, that you can only go to the one top and the next, and next is that if you enjoy your journey.
True, true, true.
So if you get lethargic, and if you take pressure, and if you in a stressful condition, you cannot get to the top.
Speaking of lethargic, and Shahzad also mentioned, speaking of the losing your focus or attention, especially in the 21st century, we're living in a very fast-paced world, and obviously we have so many distractions in the form of the social media or the gadgets. We have wealth of information, poverty of attention, poverty of focus. How to make sure that you remain focused on your goal when you have so much distraction out there, and they are so much, I mean, they're very tempting in that sense.
For example, प्यार हो गया आपको. अब आप
I was talking about social media, but you
It's
hit
all right.
your conversation
All right,
around प्यार हो गया.
okay, social media even, so I think all of these are the things which actually derail your
Yeah.
focus. May it be love, may it be family matters, may it be social media, may it be some commitments which you certainly do not want to have, may it be, meeting with people who certainly do not contribute to your goal as
True.
well. So how do you make sure that you stay focused? How do you make sure that you keep those people out of your life who will derail you from what you're focused on?
Actually, it's very important. Actually, pyar hona is something that it's a very natural behavior, and it happens actually. So it depends that what kind of person you are loving with.
True. Okay.
Means the people you are loving should be somebody that you get inspired with.
Okay.
And the people are actually in your success, the role of the people around you, it matters a lot. So if you are with the people who are having big objectives, they're always positive, they are passionate, they're dedicated, they're working.
Aja.
So it gives you an energy.
True.
And Hajra, what you mentioned is that we have got so many distractions in life, but the fact is that when you have the bigger goals,
Yeah.
they have a pull effect.
Yeah.
It's very important. They can't make sleep. You cannot sleep if you have big objectives. So if you just having the small objectives, then there are more chances that you get sidetracked, you get off the track. But the bigger objectives, they have their own charisma. So at every point of time in your life, as you are moving up the hill, at every point your vision gets better, broader. You see a much better view. You can see very far.
You're more experienced.
You're more experienced. So this is how actually the big objectives creates the difference between an ordinary person and an extraordinary person.
But what about your objectives, since we are talking about the goal settings and objectives? So we want to know about your objectives, the big objective, big idea.
Well, means there are so many objectives you cannot actually talk openly. But one of my objective is, as I mentioned earlier, that to launch one book in this 2023. So this is one of my objective. So and it's very important that when we are talking about objective, it's not as we have been talking about the fact that most of the people, majority is from the humble backgrounds, and they always talk about the money, and that's it. So they cannot actually control.
Even people who are from the good background, from the economically very well off background, they also talk about the
they
money.
become they're talking about the money.
True.
So we cannot actually control that hunger.
Yeah.
We cannot control. You have to control that desire. It does not mean that you do not look for, but you have to control that desire. And important thing is that you forget about. You mostly talk about the money and your financial things, but you do not take care of your family. You do not talk about your personal objectives. You do not talk about your social objectives. You forget about your religious objectives.
True.
So when we talk about objective setting, it's a complete package. It's about your life. It covers all that, your professional life, your social life, your religious life, your personal life. It talks about your trainings, development.
It needs to be about everything.
Yes,
if,
it's about
if we
everything.
talk about success, it
And
really needs to come
one thing
with
I would
everything.
like to mention is that one of the major difference why those people who can achieve objectives and those who cannot achieve objective is that those who are the achievers, they write down their objectives, and then they divide their objectives to a single day, that how much effort they need to put in on a daily basis, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, in a line with their big objectives. And that's how they achieve their objectives.
So very quickly, and you've hit the nail on the head again. I mean, I really need to admit that that every word you've said is actually going to help people.
True.
But what I've witnessed, and I would want to share it with you and our viewers as well, and you can say whether I'm right or wrong. You know, because these, I believe, have been the basics and the epitome for me to be where I am in life. If people want to draw inspiration from that, if you feel like that I'm worthy of it. Number one, that, you know, most of the times we come across these ideas in our mind that, hey, you know what, I should have my own clothing line. I should have my own perfume brand.
True.
Something of that sort. So everybody will have, you know, their different ideas. People from different walks of life will think about that. And you get these ideas very often. I believe that this is Allah talking to you, that this is something I have for you. Go ahead, give it a try. Number one, do you agree to it?
Yes, I agree with
Yes,
this.
you agree to it. Now, number two, because these are the basis of goal setting. Number two, what I have believed is that, you know, that the moment you start to share your goals and vision with other people, that's the time when you're actually backtracking yourself, not moving ahead. Keep your goals and your vision to yourself.
I don't agree with this.
You don't agree? Why?
Yes. I don't agree because it's very important that whenever you have your objectives and you are sharing your objectives with, now as I mentioned,
The right people. Okay, right people
right
is
people,
fine, yeah.
or means it doesn't matter. Means as I'm sharing my objective is to write down the book, and now I am morally bound
To write it down.
to write it down because I have, you know, shared with everybody. So
Okay.
it is that you are keeping yourself held accountable for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever objectives you have, you share it with the people. And one of my favorite author, Jim Collin, in his book is mentioned that, you know, having big objectives, big goals, share it with the people. So whenever you share those objectives with the people, people should smile.
Yeah.
How silly this person is! What nonsense is talking about?
True.
So if you're trying to become a prime minister after 20 years, if you share it with somebody, you're right.
All right, so take it.
So
take it,
share
take
it with the people.
So with the right people. I
With the
think
right people.
I would
Yes,
want
you
to
can
add
do-
it over
with
here
the
with the
right
right
people.
people. Now moving on, you know, so number three, what I'm going to share over here is that when we talk about goal setting, when we talk about what we really need to do is, there's this one thing which I've always stood by, that you work hard so much, you know, by being alone and by not making the noise, that once you become successful, that all the noise is being made.
Would you
What do
repeat
you take of it? For example, कि आप इतनी खामोशी से मेहनत करें कि सारा शोर आपकी कामयाबी मचाए.
it? Yes, it's a good thing.
Let's
that,
not, you know, kind of start to speak about it. Bhaijan, मैं ये कर रहे हैं, मैं ये कर रहे हैं.
And what happens is that when you are making so much of the noise and you are, you know, you are recorded everywhere, so there are so many people who are, you know, creating impediments for you as well. So very fine, you need to stay focused. You put, you know, all your energy in a single direction. Silently do it. It's a wonderful
I
thing.
think that's wonderful. Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much, Asif bhai, for being with us. We really need to be focused over here because my producer has been asking for a short break as well. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
It was
you so
lovely to
much.
be in conversation
Thank
with
you.
you, and disagreements are nice. And just very quickly, before we head out towards a short break, ladies and gentlemen, never be sad about all of those people who might not be a part of your life as of now. They have stepped outside of your life circle, social circle, is because of the fact that Allah might not even want them to be with you, because where you are headed, I think that they might not be contributing to that. So never be sad about it. Good morning. We're headed towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right
back.
Good morning.
Welcome back to our show, and we were talking about the objective setting, goal setting, and certainly we were talking about it should not be restricted towards the professional goal settings, but rather it should encapsulate your entire physical goal settings, your spiritual ones, and also how to give time to your family, because a lot of conversation going on regarding the work-life balance nowadays. So obviously it's a very stressful thing to have your goals in your life, and sometimes what happens is that stress is demonized a lot, right? So for example, we say stress is not a good thing because it can impact your health very negatively, and it could also strain your relationships. But having said so, stress should not be always demonized, because I do feel that it can be turned into a force of good. It can induce your creativity under stress. You can work some people work very well under the stress, right? So in order to have this conversation, so how should we manage our stress? Because stress is a very defining feature of 21st century, because a lot of young people, they are stressful about their lives, about what is going to happen, and obviously in a cacophony
in anticipation.
Yes, in an anticipation of what will happen to them in the future, how their lives going to be turned out. So it's a very hot topic about it.
And which is why, you know, Haja, what I wanted to add over here is that, for example, people say that fear is not good.
Okay.
I believe that fear is good, because fear stops you from doing stupid things.
True.
You know, such is the example of stress. You know, I think manageable stress, ladies and gentlemen, is good. You know, when you're stressed about something, that means that you will dedicate yourself, you will push yourself to do better. But when stress leads to hypertension, anxiety, panic attacks, I think that's something which is not healthy. And in younger generation, we have seen that there's a growing trend of panic attacks. There's growing trend of people using these terms fashionably as well. How do we draw the line? How do we educate our youngsters? Hey, you know what? Everything's going to be cool. Make sure that you have the right person to talk to, which we have today over here in the studios. We're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody, happens to be a lecturer, clinical psychologist, a palmist, astrologer, psycho-spiritual healer, and she happens to be Miss Iram Bibi. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
Walaikum Assalam, I'm good, how are you?
Absolutely perfect.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. And first
Thank
things
you.
first, so we are going to talk about stress. What I wanted to ask you about was that you happen to be a palmist yourself, you happen to be an astrologer yourself. Did you see or foresee how the show is going to be tomorrow for you when you got to know that you will be here on the show?
Yes, I was a little bit anxious, let me tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And first of all, thanks for having me on your
Jazakallah.
show. I'm really liking your new setup.
Thank you so much.
And the aura that you have built over here is so positive
all Allah
and
given.
entertaining and welcoming.
Thank you so much. So now let's
Thank
come
you.
down to how, you know, there's an increasing trend of panic attacks, anxiety and stress in youngsters, younger generations. I've had 3 panic attacks in my
Oh my
35 years of
Right.
life. Unfortunately, it was because I was overworking. I had to go to the right person to talk about it. Alhamdulillah, it's all sorted. But why does it happen in the first place?
There are so many reasons. There are so many stressors. First, we need to know about the stress and the stressor, the major definition of both of them. Stress basically is not a bad thing. You need to have some positive stress. Stress, the word stress is not bad. It is basically the word distress. The stress leads to distress, long-term chronic distress, which makes us hampered, which leads us to the panic attacks and all the other different variations and disorders.
All right.
So some sort of stress is important. Like if you have to make it to the show, you are coming to attend this show. So what was the first thing? You must have set an alarm on your mobile.
Yeah.
You must have ironed your dress. You have done some preparation. So this sort of stress is positive.
Okay.
When the internal resources are collapsed, you are unable to deal with stress. It leads to lack of confidence and lack of involvement, lack of poor, you can say poor concentration. So there are so many stresses. Stress is basically an innate response to the stressor. Stressor like economical frustrations, financial problems, relationship issues, social issues, adjustment. Oh yes, adjustment problems.
Was that a stress?
That was,
Yes,
That
back
was
in
a
the day.
routine
That
sometimes.
was, you know, because we were speaking about youngsters now, you know, that's their pressure. Education, I think going to the school, not passing their exams.
Unemployment, yes, performing in the class, giving presentations, meeting the challenges of deadlines. So these are different stressors. So again, positive stress is important. I have been given a deadline by my teacher. I have to fulfill this assignment. Okay, the stressor is resolved. Yes. Okay, the problem arises when the deadline is about to come or it's about over,
Yeah.
and my internal resources are collapsed and I am unable to do anything about
Yeah.
it. So this is the major anxiety, depression and distress.
And let's talk about the role of social media in inducing that stress, because a lot of time I feel that social media is unnecessarily inducing a lot of anxiety and stress in the younger population. Let's take the example of the filters or the relationship of the beauty that we have with the social media. I do feel a lot of people, because of their peer pressure, they want to appear perfect and they want to project that image of perfectness on the social media, and because of that they're taking a lot of undue pressures. Let's just take the example of the lavish weddings that we used to have, and we still having that. A lot of people hire such high price photographers just because they want to project that on the social media, that they had some very hi-fi wedding out there. But at the end, is it translating into something good for you? That's still a question mark. Or is that a stress, what do you call it, the marker for you? How would you define that?
Social media is like a coin with two faces.
True.
It has a positive side and a negative side as well.
True.
I take it positive most of the time. Yes, but it has its negative impact on our youth, even on us as well.
Exactly.
First of all, do not compare yourself with others. Accept what you are, accept your skin, accept if you are fat or thinner or whatever you are, accept yourself. So
Right.
first thing is acceptance. We do
Yeah.
not accept what we are, what Allah has bestowed us with.
True.
So first thing is accept what you are, accept your abilities, accept what you can do, and do not compare yourself with others. This is the basic
You know,
problem.
but at times it does get difficult. So imagine that, you know, we were actually born in a culture, we were nurtured in such a culture where, for example, imagine that my Puppo's son would call me and be like, hey, you know what, tera ye result hai. And then I would be like, okay, you know, why were you so interested in my result? It was like, because, you know, I went there to check mine and thought I would check yours. I was like, okay, what's my result? Oh, yaar, you fail ho gaya. You know, it's something of that. So that's stress. You know, that's the kind of a stress which is uncalled for. You never wanted it in your life. And imagine not just that, so every time your result card came back home, since we are speaking about youngsters as well, the challenges are very different and they're smaller in size and we can cater to that. So your father, मेरे मुबारक साहब के बेटे के देखो कितने नंबर हैं, you know, something, it can be any example. And in my life, obviously, Qasim was getting a lot of marks, you know, he was a brilliant student. And this is a real example. But what I'm trying to say over here is that we've always had this sense of competition ever since we were growing up. I'm glad to the education system now that they do not give up positions, it's only percentages, and the students do not feel that disturbed. I have been disturbed by the fact that why do I always have to hear from my father or my mother that look, he or she scored so much, why can't you do that? So I think that very narrative of having that peer pressure and that competition has actually disturbed us somewhere while we were growing up.
This thing is very much important because this stress has been induced by our parents in us.
True.
Even I have suffered a lot. My father wanted me to
आप भी
become a
अच्छी student
doctor.
नहीं थी?
Yes, I was not a good student.
Yeah.
I tried to gain position and my charm in the university life. Before that, I was an
Yeah.
average
In my
student.
university life, you know, by the way, on for the record, I've had 3 scholarships, alhamdulillah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. I have done MPhil on scholarship.
Wow, wonderful. We've done a good job.
Yes. So yes, parents do create a sense of comparison between us and our peers. And I was disliked by my father because I was not a doctor, and my uncle's daughter was a wonderful doctor. So for a longer period of time, he didn't accept me.
तो आप लोगों को बता रही हैं कि आया आपको आगे इलाज की जरूरत पड़ेगी या नहीं पड़ेगी, हाथ दिखाओ जरा, तुम्हें इलाज की जरूरत है.
And now I'm a psychologist.
Alhamdulillah.
I can deal with it very perfectly,
Exactly.
inshallah.
But what I want to ask you over here is, and that I believe is a valid point, and a lot of parents can use it out there. How do we realize that, God forbid, you know, our daughter or son might be having a little bit of anxiety or stress or some pressure? How do we get to know? What are those early signs that, because God forbid, if it's not treated, it will end up in depression. Unfortunately, that can happen too. And we have seen that, you know, for parents to realize that, they are in denial initially, and then when they see that their kid is not willing to do anything, just stays back home, is not willing or she's not willing to talk to anybody, that's too late. So how can parents realize at a very early stage that, God forbid, we really need to address this issue? What are those early signs and symptoms as a psychologist?
Okay, as a psychologist, we do ask about the kid that if he or she is avoiding the situations, he remains inside the home for a longer period of time. He has changed his he used to love doing some activity. Is he doing it for a longer period of time, or he has avoided that as well? So there are certain things. Secondly, the eyes say everything.
True.
If the parents
I feel
are guided enough to read the eyes, then child's eyes say each and everything.
Exactly.
They tell
and,
you.
And you know what? There have been times in my life, and I'm not sure about it. And why should I judge people, anyways? But you know,
Right.
when I look into the eyes of the people, I've seen sometimes that the eyes show me a very disturbed personality of
yes.
people as well, and that there's a lot that they are hiding. Do you think that for people, you know, who might be watching us as of now, that if they have any sort of anxiety, depression, stress, do you think that talking it out with somebody will help? Because you know, us saying to somebody, "Oh, sab theek ho jayega, tu koshish kar," that does not work. And the entire family and the support system and the Qari Saab and the doctors need to come together to kind of make sure that we, you know, heal them, you know, with Allah willing, obviously. How do you think that we can do that for people who might be disturbed? And for parents, if they see these early signs, what do you think they need to do? Do you think that they need to sit down with their kids, or do you think that they need to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist? When is it too late?
As a spiritual healer, even I do not impose spiritual therapy on my client,
ठीक है.
on a kid or a child or anyone. First of all, I would like to give them a clear indication that take him or her to a professional psychologist.
Okay.
It is the main and necessary thing. So first of all, what you need to do is seek professional help. First of all, medical health as well,
Yep.
a complete detailed checkup. Then you should go to a psychologist,
Okay.
and a professional psychologist who is practicing and who has enough qualification and competence to deal with the issue.
True.
And lastly, spiritual healing,
Oh.
because when you give something to read to the parents, and they give it to their children, then things get settled down
Yeah.
with the passage
Wow,
of
that's
time.
wonderful.
Right.
Thank you very much, Hiram
Thank
Bibi,
you so
for
much.
being with us. Lovely to
Thank
be in
you so much.
conversation with you. And for people out there, we hope that you've taken away quite a lot from this show as well. But very quickly, before I wrap up, I would want to come back to where Haja spoke about social media, and you're very vocal about it, and I like it. Because at times, you know, before sleeping, I have this habit of either reading a book, or either I'm going to watch something which is going to inspire me, which is going to give me some sort of motivation. But while you're watching those reels, somewhere in between you will see a sad video. Somewhere in between you will hear some words which will not sound perfectly very well to your ear or to your eardrums. Somewhere down the line you might feel that, hey, you know what, I think I'm just too tired. You know, just after listening to all of that music, they're blended in to make sure that they're going to play with your mind. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't fall prey to it. That's one thing which I would want to say over here. Just scroll up. You know, do not make sure that you are actually exposing yourself to such content which is going to make you sad, which is going to give you stress, which will give you anxiety. Just scroll. Please make sure that you watch things which are going to give you happiness, which will be a source of happiness. It'll give you a lot of motivation, and you will be a better human every next minute.
And obviously be mindful of how you consume your social media, and do not just randomly consume anything, because at the end, obviously it's going to affect you, and like Shahzad mentioned, that it can give you really off vibes, and it can lead to a lot of bad things out there. And make sure that you expose yourself to good content out there, because there's a lot of good content out there that can inspire you. And with that, we'll say Allah Hafiz. Until next time, it's a goodbye and good morning.
Jummah Mubarak, Adab. Have a great day. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.